The war had gone on for too long. The Galactic Alliance had fought bravely, but it was not enough. The XL-Far Empire, ruthless and unstoppable, had crushed their fleets one by one. Planets burned under their assault, and entire civilizations had fallen. The Alliance once thought they could win. Now, they could barely survive. Grand Chancellor Orin stood in the war room, staring at the holographic map. Red markers spread across the galaxy, showing every planet that had been lost. Only a few blue dots remained, representing the last strongholds of the Alliance. Every hour, another dot disappeared. The room was silent, except for the low hum of the war table. The council members around him looked tired, hopeless. A deep voice broke the silence. "We have one option left." It was Admiral Rulin, his reptilian face grim. His golden eyes scanned the room, waiting for a response. Minister Velis, a tall, blue-skinned woman, crossed her arms. "You don't mean—" Rulin nodded. "Humans." The room tensed. The word itself carried weight, a name spoken with both fear and caution. Humanity had once been part of the Alliance, but their ways were too violent, too unpredictable. The Council had exiled them long ago, believing they were too dangerous to remain among the other species. "They are monsters," said Velis. "Uncontrollable. We cast them out for a reason." Rulin stepped forward. "And now we are dying. The XL-Far are wiping us out. If we do nothing, there will be no Alliance left." Orin's hands tightened into fists. He knew Rulin was right. The Alliance's armies were broken, their greatest weapons destroyed. The XL-Far took no prisoners, no survivors. There would be no peace treaty, no surrender, only extinction. A young council member, Talus, spoke hesitantly. "Do we even know if humans are still out there? No one has seen them in decades." "They are out there," Rulin said, "and they remember what we did to them." The room grew cold. Orin looked at the council. "If we ask for their help, we may not survive what comes next. But if we do nothing, we will die anyway." He took a deep breath. "We must decide. Do we face certain death, or risk unleashing humanity's wrath?" Silence. No one spoke. No one wanted to be the one to say it. Then, slowly, Velis lowered her head. "Send the message." A single transmission was sent, a desperate plea into the void. And across the darkness of space, someone answered. The message was sent. Across the vast emptiness of space, the call for help traveled faster than light, searching for a species that had been forgotten, or rather, erased from the galaxy. No one knew if they would answer. No one even knew if they still existed. But the Alliance had no other choice. Days passed with no response. The Council waited in silence, watching the war reports come in. More planets lost. More fleets destroyed. Every hour brought them closer to total extinction. Some of the council members started to believe the humans were gone, wiped out by time or their own violent nature. Maybe it was for the best. Then, without warning, the signal came. A single message appeared on the war table, a transmission from deep space. The room fell silent as the holographic screen flickered to life. Static filled the air before a voice, sharp and cold, cut through the silence. "You dare to ask for our help." The voice belonged to a human, but it was different from what they expected. It was calm, controlled, yet filled with something unsettling. The council members looked at each other, unsure of how to respond. Orin stepped forward, clearing his throat. "We have no choice," he said carefully. "The XL-Far are wiping us out. We cannot fight them alone." A low chuckle came through the speakers. "You exiled us. You called us savages. And now, when your world burns, you turn to us." Velis leaned forward, her voice firm. "Yes, we do. Because despite everything, you are still part of this galaxy. And if the XL-Far win, you will not be safe either." Silence stretched across the room. Then the voice spoke again. "We are not afraid of the XL-Far." That sent a chill through the council. The XL-FAR were the most feared force in the galaxy. Their warriors had crushed entire civilizations. Their ships turned planets to dust. And yet, this human spoke as if they were nothing more than insects. Orin took a deep breath. Then prove it. Help us. The screen flickered. A shadowed figure appeared, barely visible in the darkness. A pair of human eyes, glowing faintly, locked onto them. If we fight, the figure said, we do it our way. No council orders. No interference. We end this war how we see fit. The demand sent murmurs through the room, giving humans full control. It was madness. No one knew what they were capable of. No one knew what they would do once unleashed. Velis clenched her jaw. And if we refuse? The voice was almost amused. Then you die screaming. Silence. The council members looked at one another, fear and hesitation in their eyes. Orin exhaled slowly. We accept. The transmission ended. The room was quiet. Then a single message came through. Coordinates. A meeting point at the edge of known space. The humans had answered. Now, the real war was about to begin. The meeting point was set. A lone, abandoned space station on the edge of the galaxy. It had once belonged to the Alliance, but was now nothing more than a rusting relic, floating in the cold void. The Council had sent a single warship, escorted by 2 cruisers, to make contact with the humans. Orin stood on the bridge, staring at the endless blackness outside. The weight of their decision pressed heavy on his shoulders. No one knew what to expect. The humans had been silent since sending the coordinates. No further messages, no demands, just the meeting point. It was unsettling. They're late, Velis said, standing beside him. Orin didn't respond. He knew impatience was dangerous, but he also knew that every second wasted brought the XL-FAR closer to their doorstep. If the humans didn't show, they would have to accept their fate. Then, without warning, the ship's sensors went wild. Sir, a crew member shouted. Massive energy readings detected. Orin turned to the viewport just as space itself seemed to tear open. A ripple in the void. Something was coming. And then they arrived. A single human warship, unlike anything the Council had ever seen, dropped out of warp. It was massive, larger than any Alliance dreadnought. Its black hull reflecting no light. It moved with a slow, deliberate purpose, like a predator stalking its prey. Strange symbols ran across its surface, glowing faintly in the dark. No escorts, no fleet, just one ship. That's all of them, Velis whispered. The warship sent no transmissions, made no attempt to communicate. It simply loomed in space, waiting. Orin swallowed hard and activated the comms. This is Grand Chancellor Orin of the Galactic Alliance. We are here to discuss terms off. His words were cut off as a voice, deep and unreadable, filled the bridge. Dock with us. That was it. No greetings, no explanations, just an order. Orin glanced at Velis, who shook her head. This feels wrong, she murmured. It was never going to feel right, Orin replied. With a slow, cautious movement, the Alliance ship extended its docking arm. A loud clang echoed through the hull as it connected to the human vessel. A docking tunnel extended between them, sealing tight. Orin and Velis led a small team down the corridor, weapons holstered but ready. The door to the human ship stood before them, smooth and dark. It opened without a sound. They stepped inside. The air was heavy, different. The walls were metallic but pulsed faintly with some unknown energy. The ship was silent, no crew in sight. It felt empty. Then, from the shadows, they emerged. 3 humans, clad in dark armor, their faces hidden behind featureless helmets. They moved with unnatural precision, their steps eerily silent. One of them, slightly taller than the others, removed their helmet. A human male with piercing eyes and a cold expression stared at them. He did not speak right away. He simply observed, as if measuring them, calculating something. Finally, he spoke. You are afraid. Velis stiffened. We are cautious. The human's lips curled slightly, almost a smirk. That will not save you. Orin stepped forward. We need your help. The XL-FAR. We know, the human interrupted. We've been watching. That sent a chill down Orin's spine. Watching. For how long? The human continued. Your war is already lost. Your armies are broken. Your fleets are nothing but scattered debris. You call yourselves the Galactic Alliance, yet you are weak. Velis clenched her fists. And you think you're strong enough to stop them. The human stared at her. We do not think. We know. The sheer confidence in his voice was unnerving. Orin forced himself to stay calm. Then you will fight with us. The human's smirk faded. We do not fight with you. He stepped closer, his gaze sharp as a blade. We fight for our own reasons. We do not take orders. We do not ask permission. We end wars. Our way. Silence filled the room. Orin knew what that meant. The humans were not allies. They were something else. Something dangerous. But there was no other choice. He nodded slowly. Then do what you must. The human turned away. Prepare your fleets. We move soon. As Orin and his team were led back to their ship, Velis whispered, I don't trust them. Orin glanced back at the human warship, its dark form like a shadow in the void. I don't either, he admitted. But we need them more than they need us. The docking tunnel sealed behind them. The war had changed. The Alliance had unleashed something they did not understand. And soon, the galaxy would know what it meant to stand in the path of humanity's wrath. The fleets were gathered. The last remaining ships of the Galactic Alliance had regrouped at a hidden location, deep in an asteroid belt. Damaged vessels were hastily repaired, soldiers prepared for another hopeless battle, and whispers spread through the ranks. The humans were coming. No one knew what to expect. Some believed the humans would arrive with a massive fleet, a terrifying armada capable of wiping out the XL-FAR in a single strike. Others feared that the humans were few in number, a remnant of a once powerful species that had long since faded into history. But everyone agreed on one thing. Humanity had returned. The waiting did not last long. Without warning, space itself seemed to shatter. A pulse of energy rippled through the asteroid field, disrupting sensors and causing some of the weaker ships to shake violently. Then, from the darkness, they arrived. Not an armada, not a fleet. One ship. The same warship that had met with the Council emerged from the void, moving silently, like a predator that knew it had no equal. Its black hull reflected no light, its design unlike anything the Alliance had ever seen. Inside the command center of the flagship, Orin and Velis stood with the other fleet commanders, staring at the screen in disbelief. One ship, whispered Admiral Rulin, his reptilian fingers tightening around the edge of the console. They sent one ship. Murmurs of doubt spread through the room. This is madness, Velis said. The XL-FAR have thousands of warships. Even with their technology, one ship is nothing against an empire. Before anyone could argue, the communication system activated. The same cold, controlled voice filled the command center. Follow us. That was it. No strategy discussion. No battle plans. Just a command. Orin hesitated, then nodded to his officers. Move the fleet. The Alliance ships followed the lone human warship as it cut through space with eerie precision. It was leading them straight toward the XL-FAR stronghold, the very heart of the enemy empire. As they approached, the scale of the XL-FAR's forces became clear. Hundreds of warships patrolled the system, massive battle stations orbiting a crimson world below. The planet, Silos Prime, was the center of the XL-FAR war machine. It was here that their fleets were built, where their armies were born. A direct attack was suicide. And yet, the humans had not hesitated. The human warship moved ahead, breaking formation, heading straight toward the largest XL-FAR fleet. Alarms blared as enemy ships detected them. Then the humans spoke. "Do not interfere." Orin felt a chill run down his spine. What do they think they're doing? The answer came seconds later. The human warship vanished. Not into hyperspace, not into stealth mode. It simply disappeared from all sensors. One moment it was there, the next it was gone. Then, chaos. The XL-FAR fleet, caught off guard, began scanning wildly, unsure of what had happened. Before they could react, their largest battleship exploded. Not from the outside, from within. Fire and debris tore through the vessel as its core detonated, sending shockwaves through nearby ships. Then another ship exploded, and another. Panic spread through the XL-FAR ranks. They were under attack, but there was no enemy in sight. Their weapons fired blindly into space, hitting nothing. Communications became frantic, orders clashing as commanders screamed for answers. Inside the Alliance flagship, Velis stared at the carnage. What is happening? The human voice returned over the comms. Watch. The sensors picked up something moving. Not a ship, not missiles. Something faster, something that cut through space like a ghost. Then, for a fraction of a second, the human warship reappeared, right next to an enemy cruiser. Before the XL-FAR could react, the human ship fired a single pulse of energy. The cruiser collapsed in on itself, as if space had folded inward. Then the human ship was gone again. It was hunting them. One by one, the XL-FAR warships fell. It was not a battle. It was slaughter. The humans never spoke again. They simply moved, striking with terrifying precision, vanishing before the enemy could counter. It was as if the laws of physics did not apply to them. Minutes passed, and the once mighty XL-FAR fleet was reduced to wreckage. Only a few ships remained, their crews in full retreat. The planet below, Celos Prime, lay vulnerable, its defenses shattered. Then, for the first time, the humans asked a question. Do you wish to end this war? Orin, still stunned, forced himself to respond. Yes. The human ship reappeared, hovering above the burning remnants of the XL-FAR fleet. Then, a pulse of energy spread outward. It was not a weapon. It was a message sent across every communication channel in the system. A warning. A new voice, deeper and colder, spoke. You have one chance. Surrender or be erased. The XL-FAR did not answer. The human warship descended. Toward the planet. Toward their capital. Toward the heart of their empire. The true wrath of humanity had only just begun. The XL-FAR homeworld burned. From orbit, the once mighty capital of the XL-FAR empire was barely recognizable. Great cities that had stood for millennia lay in ruins, their towering spires shattered. The planetary defense grid had been torn apart as if it were nothing more than fragile glass. Fires raged across the continents, turning the darkened skies into an endless inferno. The Alliance fleet hovered in silence, watching the devastation unfold. They had expected a war. Battles fought ship to ship, armies clashing on the ground, hard-earned victories at a great cost. But this was something else entirely. The humans had not fought a war. They had ended it. Orin stood on the bridge of the flagship, his face pale as he stared at the sensor readings. Velis was beside him, gripping the console so tightly her knuckles had turned white. The rest of the crew remained frozen, barely daring to breathe. What have we done? Someone whispered. The human warship hovered above the XL-FAR capital like an executioner awaiting its final command. And then, a transmission. A new voice, different from the one before. It was neither cold nor cruel, but it carried something far worse. Absolute certainty. We gave them a choice. Orin swallowed hard. And if they don't surrender? For the first time, the humans responded with something that sent a chill down the spine of every living being who heard it. Laughter. Not mocking, not joyful. Just laughter. As if the question itself was ridiculous. Then the voice returned, calm, patient. They will. Oren turned back to the screen. On the surface of Silos Prime, the XL-FAR forces had begun to scatter. Their once proud warriors, feared across the galaxy, were running. Some fled into the mountains, others buried themselves in underground bunkers, but all of them shared the same expression: pure terror. The XL-FAR leadership had gone silent. No messages, no desperate attempts at negotiation. For the first time in history, their arrogance had been broken. Then, a single message came from the surface. One simple word: surrender. The bridge of the Alliance flagship was deathly quiet. No one spoke. No one celebrated. There was no victory cry, no cheer of relief. The war was over. But the weight of what had just happened pressed down on them like a collapsing star. Velis exhaled shakily. They surrendered. Oren nodded, but there was no satisfaction in his expression. We need to make sure they honor it. He hesitated before adding, we need to understand what we just unleashed. The comms activated again, and the human voice returned. Your war is over. Oren's breath caught in his throat. Just like that. Just like that. Velis took a step forward, her voice cold. Why did you help us? A pause. Then the human answered, because we remember. The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Velis frowned. Remember what? For the first time, the human showed a glimpse of something beneath their terrifying efficiency. Not anger, not hatred, but something deeper. We remember when we were alone. Oren's mind raced. Was that it? Was that the reason? Had humanity, despite everything, still seen something worth saving in the rest of the galaxy? Had they fought not out of vengeance, not out of rage, but out of a painful, distant memory? Before he could ask another question, the human warship began to move. Slowly at first, then faster, accelerating toward the outer system. Oren stepped forward. Where are you going? The reply was simple. We are done here. Velis clenched her fists. And if the XL-FAR break their surrender? The human warship stopped, just for a moment. Then the voice returned, quieter now, but more dangerous than before. Then we come back. And with that, the warship vanished. No jump signature, no trace, just gone. The war was over. The XL-FAR empire was broken. And somewhere in the depths of the void, humanity had disappeared once again. Watching, waiting, remembering. The aftermath of the war spread like wildfire across the galaxy. The XL-FAR, once the most feared empire in known space, had fallen in a single night. Not to the Alliance, not to a grand military campaign, but to the silent, unseen hand of humanity. The surrender was absolute. Silos Prime, the heart of their empire, had gone dark. Their war fleets had been reduced to drifting wreckage. Their leaders had vanished into the shadows, fearing what would happen if they dared to defy the beings that had shattered them. But despite the Alliance's survival, there was no celebration. No songs of victory. No speeches of triumph. Only questions. Oren sat in the high chamber of the Alliance Council, surrounded by leaders from every surviving species. The air was thick with tension, fear creeping into every whispered conversation. It had been days since the humans had vanished. They had taken nothing, demanded nothing, left no trace of their presence, save for the ruins of an empire that had dared to challenge them. And yet, their absence was more terrifying than their presence. Velis stood by the chamber window, staring out at the stars. They didn't just defeat the XL-FAR, she murmured. They erased them. A diplomat from the Kothari species, his scales dull with stress, clicked his mandibles nervously. Perhaps they feared the XL-FAR would rise again. That we all would. A murmur of agreement rippled through the room. Oren shook his head. No, they didn't fear them. They didn't even hate them. He exhaled, rubbing his temples. I think the truth is worse. Velis turned to him. Worse than extermination. Oren leaned forward, his voice low. They didn't see the XL-FAR as a threat. They saw them as an example. The room fell silent. A representative from the Zordan Confederacy, his voice barely above a whisper, asked, "An example to who?" No one needed to answer. They all knew. The Alliance. Every species. Anyone who thought they could stand against humanity. A new question, unspoken but heavy, settled upon them. What happens when the galaxy no longer needs humanity? A soft chime echoed through the chamber. A transmission, one that bypassed every security measure, overriding every system in an instant. A voice followed. Cold, calm, familiar. "We see you." The air left the room. Some gasped. Others froze in fear. Velis clenched her fists. Orin steadied his breath and spoke carefully. "You're still watching us." The voice did not confirm or deny. "The war is over. Your people have peace. Do not seek us." Orin frowned. "Why? What are you afraid of?" There was a pause. Then, for the first time, the voice was not emotionless. There was something beneath the surface, a quiet weight. "We are not afraid," the human said, "but you should be." The line cut. Every screen, every console returned to normal, as if nothing had happened, but nothing felt normal anymore. The chamber remained silent, leaders exchanging wary glances. Velis was the first to speak. "They're not gone." Orin nodded. No, the humans had vanished into the void, but they were still there. Hidden, waiting. The war had ended, but something far greater had begun. The galaxy was different now. Not because the XL-FAR were gone, not because the Alliance had survived, but because everyone now knew the truth. Humanity was out there, watching, waiting, and no one knew what would happen next. Orin stood on the observation deck of the Alliance flagship, staring into the void. The battle-scarred remnants of the fleet floated nearby, undergoing repairs, but his focus was elsewhere. He had been in countless battles, had seen empires rise and fall, had witnessed horrors that would break lesser beings. But nothing had ever unsettled him the way humanity had. Velis stepped beside him, her expression unreadable. "The Council is in chaos." Orin exhaled. "I imagine so. Some want to send envoys, others want to strengthen defenses. Some think we should do nothing at all and pray the humans forget about us." Orin shook his head. "They won't forget. They never forget." Silence hung between them. The truth was simple. There was no preparing for humanity, no strategy that could predict what they would do next. Velis hesitated before speaking again. "Do you think they'll come back?" Orin thought about that question for a long moment. "I think they never left." Velis frowned. "Then what do we do?" The answer came not from Orin, but from the console behind them. A transmission, appearing without warning. No alarms, no alerts. The humans had decided to speak again. Orin turned slowly, his heart pounding. The screen flickered to life. Not with a face, not with a symbol, just darkness. Then the voice spoke. Calm, cold, absolute. "Do not search for us." Velis tensed. "Why not?" A pause. Then the response. "Because we are searching for something else." The word sent a chill down Orin's spine. "What do you mean?" Another silence. Then the voice spoke once more. "There are worse things in the dark than us." The transmission ended. The screen went black. Orin and Velis stood frozen, processing what they had just heard. The weight of those words settled over them like a crushing force. The humans had not just destroyed the XL-FAR. They had not just won a war. They were preparing for something greater, something unseen, something terrifying enough that even they considered it a threat. Velis whispered, "What could be worse than them?" Orin had no answer. But deep in the void, somewhere beyond the reach of the Alliance, humanity moved unseen, searching, hunting, preparing, and whatever they were looking for, it was only a matter of time before they found it.